Hi there, I'm Christina, and welcome to Salty Critics Corner. Today, in case you didn't notice by my outfit, we'll be doing dark academia. And this is one of those OG topics that so many really interesting content creators have done really good videos on. So we wanted to put a little Salty Critics Corner twist on it. Today, we'll be doing book recommendations for your dark academia character. So, if you want to start dressing like a retired professor, write essays for fun, walk down dark tunnels, and not that we recommend it, but maybe participate in some ritualistic murder, but you just don't know what to read, keep on watching. Now, it's roasting in here, so let's get more comfortable. So let's first start setting the scene. What is a dark academia character? What are some classic dark academia characters? And keep in mind, these are simply our opinions. So if you disagree with us, please come for us. We want to build a community of unlike-minded individuals. Dark academia. I'm sure I don't need to tell anyone what that is, but just for the sake of it, it is an aesthetic, and we discussed aesthetics last time. We discussed coquette aesthetic, wave aesthetic, but dark academia is probably bigger than both of those put together, and then some. It's an aesthetic that fundamentally romanticizes the university life. It romanticizes intellectual pursuits. It features these dark, melancholic characters. And in the end, it usually leads to some sort of plot twist with mystery influences. There's many novels and many films, but because we are talking about characters today, I said let's just focus on a couple of iconic dark academia characters. First of all, you cannot talk about dark academia without talking about Donna Tartt's The Secret History. And worry not, it won't be in today's recommendations because we really want to do a video dedicated solely to it. But we want to talk about Richard, who is the main character of The Secret History and is probably the quintessential dark academia character. He goes to this private university, he is from a regular background, he meets these classmates from a higher socioeconomical situation, and he basically tries to fit in. And slowly but surely the plot unravels. I'm not gonna ruin it in case people haven't seen it, but aesthetically he does embody this tweed wearing, dark, melancholic character. And this is the male counterpart, although in my experience The Secret History really speaks to female readers because you do get these really romantic characters that I'm sorry to say are probably not really gonna happen in real life. I want to talk a bit about what would be like a female counterpart. And interestingly enough, I made a list of these characters before I started the video, and probably the first thing that came to mind when it came to female characters in the dark academia space was, weirdly enough, this book written by Anne Rice, The Interview with a Vampire author. She also has a collection series called Witches of Mayfair, and Mona, I think was her name, in The Witches of Mayfair is also this precocious teenager who discovers that she's a really powerful witch and she starts wreaking havoc. But from a visual point of view, you get the same, Gothic architecture descriptions, these old mansions with lots of secrets, and of course witches. Which I would say it's probably witch academia is an offshoot of dark academia, but yeah, let's not get into details like that. So yeah, Mona in Anne Rice's Witches of Mayfair, that would also be a dark academia character in my opinion. And I also wrote down, this is not a character, but the actual author, Joyce Carol Oates, I don't think she's super popular on social media necessarily, although she is very active on Twitter, interestingly enough. But I feel like her whole life and her whole output is a dark academia character. She comes from a working class background. She went to a really good university. She started writing as a 14-year-old and published her first book as a 26-year-old, writing about all of these characters that she's encountered in different stages of her life. And the way she writes characters, the way she carries herself, to me, they all speak about dark academia. And I'm gonna insert a couple photos of her because I feel like visually as well, I mean, at the end of the day, she is a professor. She is a university professor, a writer, and I feel like this is the aspiration of most dark academia characters. So yeah, Joyce Carol Oates, that's another one. And I've got two of the OG dark academia characters. And I'm gonna mention these a bit later down the line, so keep on watching. Raskolnikov from Crime and Punishment, and of course Dorian Gray. I feel like these two are pretty much everything Richard wants to be in terms of behavior, in terms of beliefs, in terms of behavior, in terms of lifestyle, which obviously if you're familiar with the characters, this is not something we should aspire to. And I think when it comes to dark academia, this is a really important thing to keep in mind, that it does romanticize some really dark impulses. It romanticizes depressive behaviors. It romanticizes, I mean, we're not even going to get into the murder parts, but secret societies, ancient knowledge that usually revolves around some sort of nefarious ritual. So, of course, it's all fun and games as long as, we keep that in mind. Yeah, so we've got these characters. We've got Richard, Joyce Carol Oates, Raskolnikov, Dorian Gray. What would these people read? Let's find out. Book number 1. Marcel Proust's In Search of Lost Time. And this is Swann's Way, which is volume 1 of 7. And the reason why I wanted to start with this book is because you don't really see it. You don't really hear a lot about Proust in dark academia corners, but also just like in general. His work isn't the classic social media recommendations. And I don't think it's because In Search of Lost Time is too long. Like, there's plenty of book series with 7 volumes or more that are being recommended. But I feel it's because Proust has a really bad reputation. And we want to dispel that, basically, because he is a fantastic writer. His novels are intricate, well-developed, and they really portray such a lively end of the century Paris, very impactful changes in society. And he explores all of these events through some of the most well-developed characters in literature. So why isn't Proust, more popular? And I'll give you like a small anecdote, really. When I was little, my mom kept telling me that if she couldn't fall asleep, Marcel Proust would be what she was reading. And I feel like that just sums up what a lot of people think about him. And it's deeply unfair. Of course, maybe he doesn't have the plot lines of Victor Hugo, and maybe he doesn't have a little bit of like Balzac's reputation, although obviously he's a classic writer. But for some reason, he just isn't popular enough in the contemporary literary scene. So not that we think we're gonna make a big impact on that, but at least we want to try, because Marcel deserves better. So let's start with Swann's Way. Book number 2. And get ready, because I feel this is gonna be a long one and I'm gonna have to edit the life out of this. But Where did I put my mug? But Crime and Punishment, for many years, Crime and Punishment was my favorite novel. And I'll be very honest, it was a very superficial choice at first, because I think I read Crime and Punishment before I had a really good understanding of what Dostoevsky was all about. This was my first Dostoevsky novel, and I wasn't very familiar with the conflict between Slavophiles and nihilists, which is something that he's covered in many of his novels, most importantly in Demons, but again, another video. And I'll let you know the reason why this was my favorite book is because I was fundamentally in love with Raskolnikov. Raskolnikov isn't just the OG Dark Academia character, he is the OG bad boy character that is changed by a beautiful, brave, and honest female character, Sonia. And yes, the paragraph that got me interested was, incidentally, he was remarkably good looking, taller than average, slender and trim, with beautiful dark eyes and dark blonde hair. So, of course, remarkably handsome characters, poorly dressed, going through some really deep spiritual changes. Yeah, my teenage self was hooked. But Raskolnikov is fundamentally a Dark Academia character. He's a student, he comes from a lower socioeconomical background, and he meditates on the unfairness of faith. Why does an individual as intelligent, as good looking, basically the pinnacle of humanity in his opinion, the Übermensch in Nietzsche's terms, why does he have to suffer like that? Why does he have to be poor? Why does he have to live in a miserable attic bedroom? Why does he have to live like that when he deserves better? At the same time, he sees characters that he considers inferior to be leading a much better life, so he takes matters into his own hands. And honestly, if there is no murder in your Dark Academia novel, is it even a Dark Academia novel? Questionable, but definitely my Dark Academia character would love Crime and Punishment. It is the quintessential spiritual conflict book and absolutely something anyone should read. And not just because Raskolnikov is handsome. Our next book is Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. And this recommendation comes straight from Claudia. I honestly haven't read this book yet, but everything I've heard about it is really positive, and I wanted to include it in our recommendations because I realized this is a lot of classics. I mean, none of these were published before the 1950s, and honestly, off the top of my head, I think they were all published before 1900. So I wanted to feature a contemporary Dark Academia book, and according to Claudia, this is Dark Academia because it features the great unknown. It features a mysterious house, it features a mysterious nameless man, and the main character, Piranesi, also incidentally a female character, and I think we don't get enough of those in the Dark Academia novel genre, I would say. Definitely make this a really good recommendation, for the more dreamy kind of character, for the more aspirational kind of character, and definitely for the more positive kind of character, which I think, again, is a bit of a lack in this aesthetic. We glorify melancholy, we glorify depression quite a bit in this aesthetic, so I feel like, not that Piranesi is a happy-go-lucky book, absolutely not. We don't do happy at Salty Critics Corner, ever. So if you want to try a contemporary novel, if you want to burst out of the classic scene, the way I generally find it a bit hard to do sometimes with contemporary novels, because I definitely lean a bit more towards these, definitely Piranesi is a good option. Take Claudia's word for it. The next book is Oscar Wilde, but not The Portrait of Dorian Gray. So again, like I said, we want a couple more diverse recommendations, and honestly, any Dark Academia character needs to read plays and poems, but we'll get to poems in a bit. Plays, and Oscar Wilde's plays, I don't see these very much talked about, to be honest, and It's a shame because, of course, Dorian Gray is a really good novel. It's very aesthetically pleasing. We've obviously had a lot of films made after it, but the plays of Oscar Wilde, I mean, he is one of the foremost satire writers in literary history. He lived in some, well, ripe for satire times, and his plays definitely deserve a lot more attention. I vacillated a little bit between choosing Oscar Wilde plays and choosing Chekhov plays because I am more partial to Chekhov, as I am in general more partial to Russian literature. But in the end, I wanted to go with Oscar Wilde because I feel like he embodies the dark academia spirit a bit better than Chekhov does. At the end of the day, Oscar himself modeled Dorian Gray after the people he knew, and he modeled the mentor character after himself. The mentor character names is not coming to me, of course, right now. I'm gonna insert it, but he lived in that kind of private education, aristocratic background, Gothic mansions. I'm sure he wore lots of tweed. I think his plays would definitely infuse a little bit of humor into a character and a genre and an aesthetic that oftentimes takes itself way too seriously, as a lot of melancholic characters do. Of course, it's hard to see the funny side of things, but at least we can see the Schadenfreude side of things. And I feel like theater and plays, and specifically Oscar Wilde's plays, would bring a small note of comedy into a life that can be way too serious, and it can absolutely be the dark kind of comedy because it is dark academia after all. Poetry. Again, you do see poetry mentioned in dark academia recommendations, and this is the reason why I didn't want to recommend Oscar Wilde's poetry, or maybe even Emily Dickinson, whom I think is an exceptional poet. The next book is William Blake. Does anyone remember William Blake? I definitely wasn't very aware of his work, at least not his poems, until there was this really, really good exhibition at the Tate Britain about his artwork. And he was not very popular in his time. He died poor. He only became a lot more appreciated later down the line. He's very well known for his Urizen painting. He's well known to Hannibal Lecter fans because he painted the paintings that appears in Red Dragon in the film. And he also worked on illustrating the Divine Comedy. But his poems are delightfully Gothic poems. He even has a book for children. I think it's up there somewhere. This is supposedly a book for children, but it is decidedly not, I would say. Just to give you an example of what he considers poems for children, this is The Chimney Sweeper. Because I was happy upon the heath and smiled among the winter's snow, they clothed me in the clothes of death and taught me to sing the notes of woe. And because I am happy and dance and sing, they think they have done me no injury, and are gone to praise God and his priest and king, who make up a heaven of our misery. Yeah, if that was pretty dark, right? So William Blake is an interesting experience because he writes these, in appearance, simplistic poetry, but fundamentally he is exploring deep ancestral knowledge. He explores the myth of creation. He explores time as a concept, which again can be easily tied to Marcel Proust's work. And there needs to be a little bit more diversity in the poetry that we read. So just look at this. Just look at this little book. It fits right into the pocket of your tweed blazer. Am I right? Final book. Henry James. I love Henry James. And this book in particular, of course, The Turn of the Screw might have a bit more of that gothic horror novel atmosphere in the same vein as maybe Jane Eyre or Rebecca. And those are perfectly good reads for your dark academia character. But I am more partial to Washington Square mostly because its female character, Catherine, is a very aspirational heroine. And it brings a true romantic read into your Dark Academia character's repertoire. Even in the blurb, the only child of a rich New York physician, the shy, unattractive Catherine Sloper falls an easy victim to the attentions of a good-looking fortune hunter. So obviously we talked about the bad boys of literature, Raskolnikov and Dorian Gray, but in this novel we actually gain a bit more of the female perspective. And even though it takes place a bit earlier, before what we'd consider necessarily dark academia aesthetics, it's still, same motifs, the big mansion, the aristocratic characters, the clothes. Again, I'm sure there's lots of velvet and maybe tweed in this one too. But Henry James is, again, one of the best character writers in literature. And if you've probably noticed, and I definitely noticed as I was making the list of books, we don't get that many female characters. We often get male characters, whether they're written by actual male authors or female authors like Donna Tartt. It's, I think, a genre that really appeals to women, so more women characters would definitely help. And honestly, if you have any recommendations of dark academia novels with female main characters, I would love to hear about them. But yeah, Henry James and Washington Square, I mean, again, it's such a perfect book for you to carry in your leather briefcase and go to the park and, well, don't smoke cigarettes because that's bad for you again. But, self-destruction is part of the aesthetic. I mean, this is the perfect park book, isn't it? And there you have it. The books your Dark Academia character should read. What did you think? Have you read any of these? Do you have any thoughts? Maybe you disagree with us? Please leave those thoughts down below in the comments. Hit the subscribe button, give us a like if you enjoyed the episode, and follow us on Instagram as well at Salty Critics Corner. We post a lot of what we think is Dark Academia influenced content, so if you like that, you're definitely gonna find something to like there as well. And that's about it. Thank you for watching, see you next time, and stay salty.